I worked as a night guard at a suburban park. This clown only showed up after midnight. I know this is gonna sound like total bullshit, but I'm not trying to impress anyone. Mansa. I just can't keep this to myself anymore. I need someone, anyone, to tell me I'm not going insane. It all started with a simple job. Night shifts in an old park. Quiet. Nothing crazy. But then I started noticing patterns. Same numbers. Same time. And someone out there was watching. And they knew I was watching back. My name's Jason Miller. I'm 32, recently divorced, and currently living alone in a cheap apartment in Shelton, Washington. I needed money fast. Alimony, rent, electric bills, all that fun stuff. So when the city called me up and offered a night guard position at a local park, I didn't ask too many questions. Just said, when do I start? The place was called Willow Park, basically a half-dead amusement park on the edge of town. Old carousel, busted ice cream stand, a tiny Ferris wheel that hadn't spun in at least 10 years. Moss, rust, cobwebs, the whole forgotten childhood vibe. Nobody really went there anymore. Not during the day. And definitely not at night. The guy who met me was Joe, mid-50s, clipboard under one arm, smelled like stale coffee and polyester uniform. Nothing too complicated, he told me, handing over a ring of keys and a radio. Just walk the grounds once an hour. Make sure the gates are locked, no teens sneaking in, lights aren't acting up. Every now and then, you'll get some minor stuff. Spray paint, litter, you know how it is. Every now and then? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Joe paused, like he didn't really want to elaborate. We've had complaints, but nothing major. Another pause. A couple times the cameras picked up weirdos walking around at night. But they didn't break anything. Just stood there. He said it way too casually, like he was skipping over something important. Milike. But honestly, I didn't care. Milike wisses. I was just happy to be getting paid. Milike. My shift started at midnight. Milike. All I had was an old flashlight, the radio, and access to the security office with the monitor feeds. The park was split into 3 zones: the kids' playground, the ride area, and the back lot, a half-abandoned space behind the outdoor performance stage. No one really went back there. Even in daylight, it felt off. The first couple nights were boring as hell. Cold, dark, quiet. A little wind, leaves rustling, probably raccoons in the bushes. I sipped bad coffee from the vending machine, listened to static on the radio, and did my hourly rounds with the flashlight barely cutting through the dark. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps. Or laughter, pray you black. But I chalked it up to nerves, sleep deprivation. Imagination, Hesgur to Vasigs, nobody showed up. Nothing happened. Until night 3, carburation. At exactly 3:03 a.m., something flickered on one of the cameras. Just for a split second. I rewound the footage. Nothing. Fast forwarded to 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 7 seconds, and that's when I caught it. A flash of red and white. I froze the frame. There was a figure. Someone in a suit. Or maybe a costume. No. Face was painted white, with this smeared red grin. Gloves on. They were standing near the swings, just staring right into the camera, motionless. And then, gone. After that night, I started showing up to work with this weird sense of dread. Shabbery. Not fear, exactly. More like instinct. Like my body knew something was wrong before my brain caught up. Me. The next day, I told Joe about what I'd seen on the camera. Me. He just chuckled, still sipping his coffee. You're probably nodded off. Those cams are ancient. Sometimes they glitch and show phantom stuff. Reflection hits just right. Trash blows by, looks like a person. Happens. I didn't argue. But after that, I started paying way more attention to the feeds, especially the one pointed at the swings. Old, crooked things, half covered in grime and moss. Cam number 4. I started calling it the dead zone cam. On night 4, I was already sitting with my finger hovering over the pause button at exactly 3:03 a.m. And then he showed up. Not flashed, not glitched, appeared. First, there was nothing. Just the swings, gently moving in the breeze. Then, a figure. Like he stepped right out from behind a tree. Pueling. Tall. Way too tall to be normal. Hilling. Suit was red and blue, big buttons down the front, dirty white ruffled collar. His face, it wasn't a mask. It looked like old face paint. Cracked. Flaking. Like he was trying to look happy, but had forgotten how. He just stood there, slowly tilting his head side to side. Then he took a step forward. And another. I jumped up, grabbed my flashlight, and ran out of the booth. The park was pitch black, except for the moonlight hitting the paths between the rides and food stands. I ran straight for the swings, nothing. I scanned everywhere with the light. Checked the path. Behind the trees. Nothing but dust, an old chip bag, and a tiny kid's glove half buried in the dirt. I did a full sweep of the area, breathing hard, adrenaline pumping. By the time I got back to the booth, cam number 4 was down. Black screen. No signal. That night, I barely blinked. I sat there with all the lights on, flipping between the other cameras. He didn't come back. But right before my shift ended, at 5:59 a.m., someone knocked on the window, twice. Soft. I spun around. No one there. Just a handprint, pressed against the glass, big, wearing a torn glove, red. I could feel something breaking inside me. After the night with the handprint, I decided to start keeping track of everything. I bought a cheap notebook and started writing it all down. Times, dates, weather, camera glitches, weird shit I saw. It was the only way to stay sane. Trying to make it make sense. Trying to pretend there were rules to this. But logic didn't live in that park anymore. By night 6, I came in early, wanted to double check the camera feeds myself. Everything looked fine. Crisp, clean footage on every monitor, except cam number 4. Wouldn't even power on. Joe just shrugged. Probably a frayed cable or something. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't broken. It was shut off. It was shut off. From the other side. Around 2 a.m. that night, I heard a loud thump. Heavy black. Odd, Brajan hitty. Heavy, Brajan quite fra. Tejan quite fra. Like someone jumped down from somewhere high and landed hard. I stepped outside. Blacka. There was a balloon. Red. Just sitting there on a bench, near the restroom entrance. Written on it, in thick black marker. You're boring. I looked around. No one. The wind barely moved the trees. Everything was too quiet. I picked up the balloon. Immediately felt cold. Not on my skin. Inside. Like something invisible was standing inches from me. Watching. The next night, I found another one. Yellow. Wanna play? After that, the messages started showing up in different spots. On the roof of a food stand. Inside the rusted ride booth. Once, I found one inside the security shack. I had no idea how he was getting in. Mo broken locks. Mo broken windows. Obras to Mobley. Mobley, Mobras to Mobley Cates. Mobras to Mobley. Mobras to Mobras. Mobras to Mobras to Mobley. Mobras to Mobras to Mobley. Mobras to Mobley Cates. Mobras to Mobras. Mobras to Mobras to Mobras. Mobras to Mobras to Mo. Didn't matter which ones. Static. Flickers. Sometimes, for just a split second, I'd catch faces. Kids' faces. But wrong. Warped. Like someone tried to draw a child's face from memory and got it all just slightly off. The light in the security booth started acting weird too. Buzzing. Flickering. Full-on horror movie vibes. I replaced the bulb. Next night, still flickering. Mentally, I was unraveling. Started talking to myself out loud. Pacing. Whispering stuff like, it's just a prank. Just locals messing around. Nothing weird. Just kids. But every night, it started to feel more targeted. He wasn't just appearing. He was watching me. Getting closer. Testing the boundaries. I was down to 2 hours of sleep a day, chugging energy drinks. Losing track of time. One morning I woke up in my apartment and realized I had no memory of how I got home. I checked my notebook. There were entries from the night before, but the handwriting was shaky, like someone else had written them. Or, like I'd written them with someone else's hand. That's when I started digging. In the back of a supply cabinet, behind a loose panel, I found an old folder full of clippings from the local newspaper. Someone definitely didn't want them out in the open. PETA. Inside was an article from 2010. Children's entertainer missing, the clown of Willow Park. A man named Randall Higgs used to do kids' birthday shows at the park. Never convicted of anything, but there were complaints. Parents saying he got too attached to kids, said weird stuff, showed up places he wasn't invited. They fired him. A week later, he vanished. Official story was that he moved out of state. Unofficially, people said they still saw him in the park, late at night, in full makeup, alone. After that, they started shutting the park down. Publicly, it was budget cuts. But the locals? They said the kids were scared to go there. I closed the folder. My hands were shaking. Something inside me was screaming, "Leave!" But something else was whispering, "Stay. He's waiting." I didn't even notice when I started changing my habits. Miso. I started avoiding mirrors. At first, it was unconscious. Miso. I'd catch myself looking away from windows, skipping reflections, turning off my phone's front camera the second it popped up. Once, I saw my reflection in one of the park's windows, and my heart just dropped, because I could have sworn I wasn't alone. There was someone standing behind me, too close. Of course, when I turned around, nothing was there. I kept telling myself, "You're stressed, you're sleep deprived, you need a break." But who can afford a break when the bills don't wait? On night 9, I saw him, Bok, Wozlayak. Bok, Wolayak. Not on a monitor. Wolayak, I cannot just a flicker in the dark. Skache Drayak. In person, I was doing my usual rounds. Flashlight, radio, coffee and a thermos. About to walk past the Ferris wheel, when my flashlight started flickering. I stopped. Checked the light. Battery was fine. Everything should have been fine. And then the wheel started to turn. Slow, barely moving, but it was turning. I froze. None of the rides had power. The whole system had been cut years ago. Everything was rusted and dead. And yet, up in one of the seats, someone was sitting there, legs dangling. Like they were just waiting. Wait. Clown costume. Obvious, even from down below. Dead. He wasn't looking at me. Just kind of swaying his feet. Appulsive. Like he was remembering the music that used to play here. Pro as he busy quell. Like he never really left. He busy. I tried to say something, but my throat dried up. Pro as he busy. Pro as he busy. Pro as si busy. I proed Jalad dread up. Flashlight flickered again, then died completely. When it came back on, he was gone. The wheel had stopped. I didn't tell anyone. Who the hell would believe me? But I wrote it down in the notebook. Hunchun. Big black letters. Hunchun Stas. Twice the size of my usual writing. Hunchun. My handwriting was a mess now. Letters shaky, uneven. Sometimes I looked at the page and didn't even recognize it as mine. After that night, he started showing up more. One time, I saw him in the reflection of the popcorn stand, standing right behind me. Another time, he was near the old stage in the back lot, shining a flashlight in my face. Problem was, I was the one holding the flashlight. And once, in the restroom mirror, I saw him standing behind me while I washed my face. When I looked up, he was right there. I spun around, nothing. But when I looked back in the mirror, he was still there. In the reflection, even though the room was empty. My mind was slipping. I couldn't tell if I was dreaming, hallucinating, or awake. One night I woke up on the floor of the security shack. Clock said 4:44 a.m. and written in marker across the monitor screen, "You're getting better." I started hearing his voice. Not clearly, just fragments, through static, through the radio, through the flicker of the damn light bulb above me. He didn't talk, exactly. He sang, in a childlike voice, sometimes circus tunes, sometimes just random phrases on repeat. "You came. You're here. You stayed. Let's play." I didn't know if I was dreaming or if I'd woken up inside a dream. I stopped answering my phone. Joe messaged me a couple times. Everything okay? I ignored it. I didn't want to talk to people. I was scared one of them might be him. Same clown, different face, different skin. Then I found a photo. Joe on Venice. Same old folder in the back of the cabinet. Dusty, curled at the corners. Joe on Venice. A school party, sometime in the 90s. Joel Steide. On the left, Randall Higgs. Full clown getup, smiling at the camera. On the right, a bunch of kids. And in the center, in the background, me, little kid, maybe 8 years old. Blue jacket, definitely me. On the back of the photo, 1999, school party, Mrs. Derrick's class. I was born in 91. I went to that school, Mare Hi Sal. But I had no memory of that day, I nai pori hi. No memory of that photo. I nai hi sal. How do you forget meeting someone like him? By night 12 I knew I wasn't walking out of that place the same. Something in the park had changed. DZX. It didn't breathe the way it used to. No creaks. No hums. No hums. Just stillness, like it was waiting. I showed up to my shift with my hands shaking. Didn't even bother with coffee. What was the point? I didn't feel like a person anymore. I felt like a piece finally sliding into place. When I got to the security shack, the door was already open. Lights were off. There was an envelope on the desk. My name written on it, Jason, in a messy, almost childlike handwriting. Inside was a single note, be funny, and a clown nose, red, foam, old. It smelled like something sickly sweet, bubble gum and dust. I don't know why, but I picked it up, slipped it into my pocket. That's when everything started to shift. 3:03 a.m., static on all the cameras. 3:04, lights cut out. 3:05, a knock on the door. 4 times, slow, deliberate. I didn't open it. I just sat down in the chair and stared into the dark. Then I heard the door creak open on its own. Footsteps. Heavy. Uneven. Like someone dragging 2 big shoes across a rooftop. I stepped outside. The park was dead. No lights, no power, just moonlight. And in the distance, balloons. Hundreds of them. Floating, suspended in midair, completely still. Like the world had paused. Each one had something written on it. Jason. My friend. Together again. I missed you. I ran. I don't even know where to. Just away. Past the stage. Past the food stands. Through the back area. Deeper into the park, where no lights ever reached. And that's where he was. Sitting on an old wooden chair. Waiting. The clown. He didn't move. Just watched. His eyes were wet. Not glossy. Wet, like he'd been crying. But the paint on his face didn't change. No emotion. Just that frozen grin. Prowess. He lifted a hand. Pointed at the empty chair beside him. Welik. I sat down. Prowess. We didn't speak. Prowess. 5 minutes. 10. Maybe 15. No words. Then he leaned closer and whispered. You came that day. A long time ago. You laughed. And then you left. And I stayed. Alone. His voice wasn't scary. It wasn't angry. It sounded like an old friend who got left behind without a goodbye. I couldn't respond. No words came. Just tears. I don't even know why. Then he handed me his wig. Red. Messy. Covered in dust. And he pointed again, toward a mirror leaning against a tree. I walked over, looked in. And I saw him. Not him with my face. Me with his. No screaming. No panic. Just quiet acceptance. Like I had always been heading toward this moment. They found me the next morning sitting at a bus stop outside the park. Covered in dirt. Clown nose still in my pocket. How? I didn't remember leaving. I just told them I wasn't going back. Ever. Nobody asked questions. Not even Joe. He just looked at me, and then looked away. I moved. Changed my number. Got a different job. Tried to keep a low profile. But a few weeks ago, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a single red balloon. And a note. Now you're funny too. It's been 6 weeks. I haven't been back to Mason County. Haven't gone anywhere near it. I moved to Spokane. Got myself a tiny second-floor apartment that overlooks a busy street. I needed movement, noise, people. I figured if I surrounded myself with light, he couldn't find me. At first, it worked. Things felt normal. I started telling myself maybe it was all in my head. Hallucinations, sleep deprivation, isolation, stress. I even got a therapist. Bought a few books on mindfulness. Tried to let it go. But he didn't let go of me. Have used greats. One morning, I woke up to this weird smell. Things t'other. Sweet. Sickly. Like childhood candy, old bubblegum, and stage makeup all melted together. It hung in the air like fog. And there, on my kitchen table, a photo. Not of me, just some random kid, dressed like a pirate. But standing behind him, smiling, him, the clown. On the back of the photo, written in the same messy handwriting, "You used to laugh too." Some nights, I hear whispering, like a kid's voice humming. Not real words, just the rhythm. Nursery rhyme slow. I went to the grocery store last week, and one of the guys working there, maybe 20 years old, was wearing a clown nose. No costume, no theme, just the nose, and smiling. When I asked him why, he said, "Aren't you playing too?" My therapist told me it's just residual trauma. Neurological imprinting, he called it. But then, one day, I started telling him about the clown, Horror, about the park, the mirror, the voice, and he went silent, totally still. Then he asked me, "You hear the music too?" I never went back after that. A week ago, I woke up to something soft brushing against my forehead. Sat up fast. There was a balloon on my pillow. Small. Blue. No writing. Just a note taped to the side. "Your turn to lead." I get it now. It's not a game. It's a passing of the mask. He was alone too long. Now, I'm becoming him. For the last 2 nights, I've been putting the nose on in front of the mirror. Just trying it. Seeing how it feels. Smiling. A little. And you know what? It's not so bad. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment and like it. It will help us grow. Until next time in the next video, bye.